Hi everyone, I'm Stacy. I'm going to take you through some basics on Gimp and hopefully get you on the road to making your own labels. I've included the link to the post on soapmakingforum.com below. This video is meant to expand on some ideas in that post and show you step by step how to make a simple label. If you haven't already read it, you might want to go and do so now. I've included most of the terms for the tools I use in case you missed something in the video or you need a reminder. Let's get started. First, I'll open the program. Before we start, if you've already started to use Gimp and have changed the settings, you might want to reset it to the state it was in when it was installed. What I'm about to do will reset all of your windows and tools, so if you're comfortable with your setup and your tool changes, you might want to skip this part. You can reset all of the windows by going into the Edit menu, then Preferences. Next, select Window Management on the left, and click the Reset Saved Window Positions to Default Values. Hit OK on the pop-up window. Now we'll reset the tools by choosing Tool Options on the left, and click Reset Save Tool Options to Default Values button. Again, hit OK on the pop-up. Now we have to hit OK on the Preference window, and close the program down to make our changes take effect. When we open it again, it should look like this. First, I set up my workspace how I like it. I maximize the window and adjust the tool and layer windows so that they're clear of my menus. All of this is personal preference, and you'll find out what works for you as you use the program a little more. Now that we're all set up, let's get to work. I'm going to open a new file by clicking File, then New. This window is where you'll set up your file size and options. I'm going to pull this down and select inches as my unit of measurement. You can use centimeters or millimeters. The important thing is to know what size your label is. I'm working with a 4" by 2" shipping label, which is very common and easy to find. I'll specify 4 inches wide by 2 inches high. Now we need to click the plus sign by Advanced Options. I talked about this setting a little in my post. This is your DPI, dots per inch, or PPI, pixels per inch. While 72 will work for our purposes, it won't give the kind of crisp image that I want. So I'm going to put it right up to 300, which is probably more than enough, even if you want to send what you make out to a print shop. This setting can always be lowered in the future, but chances are that it will be a lot more difficult to raise it. You'll most likely end up having to redo some or all of your work. I'll click in the second box, and it will automatically match the first. Now we hit OK, and we have our new blank canvas to work on. I'm going to take you through a quick example of why we use layers. Don't worry about following along with what I'm doing here. First, I'll make an image that has no layers. I'll start by creating a black bar. Now I also want a red circle. This circle is way off center, and I want to move it. You'll notice that because it's all one layer, I have to move everything, then touch up the bar later. This is a very basic design. If I had images or text, I'd have to delete them and redo everything to make a change. Now I'm going to do the same, but use layers this time. Again, don't worry about following along. I'm going to do all of this again, but slower afterwards. I'll make a new layer, then place my black bar on it. Now another layer for my circle. Again, my circle is a little off center, but you'll see that because the layer is only the circle, I can move it around without having to worry about changing the elements on the other layers. Let's go right back to the blank canvas and start again. The first thing I want is a black bar across the middle of the image. I'll make a new layer because if you remember correctly, we want each element on its own layer so we can work with it later if necessary. To make a new layer, click this button on the Layer dialog window. For now, don't worry about these settings. In the future, if you want to make a solid color layer, you can do that here. But we just want the transparent layer that's already the default. Hit OK. Over here, you'll see that we have a second layer above the background now. The active layer is highlighted. You can change that just by clicking on them. We want to make sure that the new layer is selected because that's where we want our bar. Over here is your palette. This is where you'll choose the colors that you want to work with. Black is already selected by default. You can swap between the colors by clicking this arrow. To change a color, just click on the box, which will bring up the color picker. Start by choosing a color on the right bar by clicking and dragging to fine-tune. The shade of orange I want is shown on the left now. And by clicking on the left box, I pick exactly what I want. Just hit OK to keep your new color, or cancel to keep what you had. Up here is the Rectangle Select tool. It allows me to choose an area of the canvas which I can draw in, or fill in with a color. I'll start over here, click and drag, and now you can see the dotted line that shows the area I've selected. I'll go over and get the Bucket Fill tool from here. Now you'll notice that the program won't let me make any changes except the area I've got selected. Once I click in the selected area, it fills with my selected color, which is black because that's what's on top. Remember when I said that the program won't let you make any changes outside of the selected area? Well, now that we've done our fill, we want to deselect everything just by choosing the Select tool again and clicking outside of the selected area. If I don't, I might have an issue with that later when I try to do something else. This cross arrow over here is the Move tool. It lets you move things around on your canvas. Next, I'm going to make a circle in that orange color I picked earlier. First, I'll make another new layer. Now I'll go over to the palette and swap these so that my orange is on top. I'll go back up to the Select tool again, but this time I'm going to choose the Ellipse Select tool. This lets you select ovals and circles. A neat little trick with this tool is to click, then hold down the Shift button. This locks the tool to a perfect circle, which is exactly what I want right now. This also works with the Rectangle tool, but it'll lock it to a perfect square. There's my circle. Now I'm going to fill it in. My new layer is selected, so now I'll go back to the Bucket Fill tool again, and then click inside the circle. I can move this around and center it like I did the black bar, but I also want this circle to be behind the black bar. This is another thing that's easy to do because we're using layers. These arrows over here allow me to change the layer order. With layers, the top one shows the most and obstructs anything below it. You'll see when I press this down arrow, the circle is now below the bar layer and it's behind the bar in our image. I can still move it and adjust it by using the Move tool, but it will always appear to be hidden behind the bar unless I bring it back up to the top again. A small note about the Move tool: it works a little differently in different programs. In Gimp, I've noticed that regardless of the layer that's selected, or your active layer, you want to make sure your mouse is on the element you want to move. If I want to move the orange circle, I need to be on that. Same with the black bar. We're getting closer. What this label really needs now is some text. This big A over here is your Text tool. I'm going to change the palette so that the text is easier to see while I'm working on it. Click the A to select your text tool, and then click on your canvas. Text automatically makes a new layer for itself. You can also edit or move this text for content, size, or color at any point in the future. It's a little small and a little plain, but we can fix that. First, we're going to select all the text. You can do that by clicking and dragging, or you can use a keyboard shortcut by holding down Control and pressing A. This automatically selects all the text in the box. First, I'm going to make it bigger so that it's easier to see. I do that by changing this 18 to a larger number. I'll start with 100. Still not quite what I want, so let's try 150. Much better. To change the color of the text, we use this box here rather than the palette on the left. You'll notice that right here are some of your recent color selections. I want this to be the same orange as the circle, so I'm going to click this box. And now the text is orange. A lot of the options for text are very similar to word processing programs you've used. Just play around and test out what different things do. It's still a little plain though, and we fix that by changing the font. I'm going to highlight my text again by using my Control-A keyboard shortcut. Now I'll go over here to the Tools options and click this icon with the two A's. This lets me choose a new font. Now I have a lot of fonts on my computer. You probably won't have this many selections on yours, but you'll still have quite a few. I'm just going to randomly pick a font I like. This program doesn't have the best way to preview fonts, but you can still find something nice if you're patient. If you already know the name of the font you want to use, you can type it here and it'll come up. For instance, if I want to use a font called Shelley, I start typing and you'll see it pops up. I'll hit Escape to exit the font tool. Alternatively, you can just click on another tool. I'm going back to my Move tool so that I can place the text where I want it. Well, that wasn't right. So what if you do something and you don't know how to fix it? There's an easy way to undo your change. This tab has your undo history. It allows you to undo one action at a time until you get back to where you want. You can undo and redo your actions, but as soon as you make another change, it begins to rewrite from that point forward. For instance, if I make a change here, I can't redo anything anymore. Undo can be your best friend. You just have to be a little careful that you don't overwrite actions you actually wanted to keep. Now back to moving my text. I want this text in the center of the black bar, so I'll move it down. But it's not doing what I want it to do. If you haven't already spotted it, the reason is because the text layer is underneath or behind the black bar. If I go to my layer window and adjust the layer order by moving the text up, then it appears in the front right where I want it. I want to touch really quickly on this little symbol here. It's an eye, and by clicking on it, you can make your layer invisible. If your layer is invisible, obviously you can't see it, and it won't really affect what's happening on your canvas. It also makes some changes to the save file, but we'll get into that a little bit later. We're almost at the end of the basics. Now I'm going to show you how to save. Saving your file is really easy. Just click on File, then Save. Name your file. Mine is called Label because I'm super imaginative. A word of advice: if you're going to work with or plan to create a lot of different labels, get descriptive. For instance, it would probably be more useful if I called this 4x2 soap label rather than my 4x2 sugar scrub label or my 4x2 lotion label. It will save you a lot of time if you don't have to look through 20 variations of label 1 or label 2 when you want something specific. Now we've saved our file in XCF format. This is a format used by Gimp. It preserves the layer data so that if you want to come back later and change your text or color, you can do that. As far as I know though, you cannot use this format with programs like Word or with Avery to actually print a sheet of labels. Those programs all support a lot of different formats, but the most commonly used is JPEG or JPG. Before we save a JPEG, remember when I talked about those eye icons on your layers? When we export our JPEG, it's going to export what you see on your screen exactly. If you have layers hidden, they won't export and you will not see them in your final image. So what you see on your screen is what you're going to get in your image. To make our image the proper format, I'll go into File again, but choose Export this time. First, I need to select the format to save in. Hit this plus beside Select File Type and scroll down to JPEG Image and click it. You'll notice that our file name up top now has the .jpg extension. Now name the file whatever you like, but make sure that .jpg is on the end. Now click Export, and a new window will pop up. There are a lot of options here, but the only one we're really worried about at the moment is the quality slider at the top. The higher the number, the better the quality, but the bigger the file. Since we're only printing this image and not sending it out over the web, for instance, we're not worried about how big it is, so we want this right up to 100. Hit Export again. Now if I open up the folder I've been saving to, You'll see I have two images in there, the .xcf, which is the layered file for Gimp, and the .jpeg, which I can use in my label printing program. One more tip before I close off this video. When I'm making labels, I try to stay away from borders or words close to the edge. While a fancy border may look fantastic, when you're printing, even the slightest misalignment can ruin a whole page of labels. If there's a small bit of an image missing, you might not even notice. So that's a very basic run through for you. Part 2 of the tutorial will cover some slightly more advanced things like adding an image, fading and opacity, the clone tool, and a little more advanced layer and fill options. Be patient and be kind with yourself. There's a learning curve to this kind of work just like anything. If you stick with it, you will get better. Thanks for checking out my tutorial. If you're interested in part 2, the link is on the screen and in the information below.